Chapter 3 Mixed Feelings. I would sit a bit away from the town, slowing down to wait for Black, not sure if he was going to show up or not. The sun was starting to set as time seemed to slowly tick by. Maybe I should just keep going on my own. Maybe he had enough. Maybe he got hurt. I hesitated, not sure if I wanted to go back to the town or move to the next one. Time went on as the sound of rustling and groaning could be heard a few steps away. Deciding to go check it out, I ran towards the groaning as the scent of alcohol was strong the closer I got. Black staggered around until he saw me, and as soon as he came into view, I rushed to his side. Falling back, the guards laughed at him. Manhunting you made me drink toxic candy. He blows out to move the hair from his eyes. Walking fine. Taking hold of one of his arms, wrapping it around my shoulders. Black, you're drunk. My voice would raise a bit out of anger. Here I am, worried you got hurt, or that you ditched me, and you were drinking this entire time? What the hell kind of escort are you? I dragged him to a safe place, forcing him to sit, pacing for a bit as I would let out a sigh. It can't be helped. We can't travel on foot with you like this. Either we sleep here or I get us a ride to the next town. I looked him up and down, shaking my head. Vale, what the hell did you send to watch over me? I muttered under my breath, taking a seat next to Black. He watched me get snippy and mad. At least I'm not getting hunted. Ugh. Black took hold of one of the peach pies from when he bought them before. Everything he eats, some of it making it a yum sound before he placed it down and turned to puke up buckets of booze. You feeling all right? Patting his back, not sure how much he had drank, taking the bags from him. Maybe try drinking some water. He pulled off a small leather water bag to his mouth as tears ran down his face and things started to get a bit clearer. Kneeling down in front of him, I would brush the hair out of his face so I could look him in the eyes, realizing this was the first time I actually even seen them. Huh. You actually have beautiful eyes. You should show them off more. I think it might be your best feature. Running my finger through his hair so if he needed to vomit again, it wouldn't get into it. You know, you should cut your hair a bit shorter. It'd be easier to manage. And I think it would look good on you. Taking thread from one of the bags, I pulled his hair back. He swats my hand from his hair as he responds, Leave my hair alone. I'm not cutting it. He walked down the path after grabbing the bags from the floor and drinks as much water as he could. He placed a green swirled candy into his mouth and plays with it to get any and all taste of booze from his mouth out as I followed behind him. He spoke on and off while walking to the next town. You know, for a young lady that is a princess, you sure can be rude and think the worst out of everyone, he said in a dragged tone as he was getting tired of being questioned all the time. I was set to take you from one place to another because your knight in shining armor guy can't without being hunted himself. He made a scuff sound while chewing his candy, making creaking sounds. I was made to fight and kill any and all magic people. That's why I was told to do this. Can you please make it a little more enjoyable? Unsure of his words and if he was getting them out right or the point across, he kept quiet until he saw a farmer in stock on his cart and one deep brown horse. As he waved his hand up and down, he walked up to the man and woman and smiles as he spoke. We've been walking for a long while. Can you give us a lift to the next town? I'll buy some, He tilted his head to the side to see what they were selling, and it looked to be milk and bread. Bread and milk? And pay my way across the tolls. The man chuckled at the boy, which was Black almost about to say he didn't have room for him, and the woman until the woman next to him shoved her elbow into his side and spoke. "That sounds perfectly reasonable." Black didn't know what she meant, so he smiles and nods as he ran back over to me. Luna, what does perfectly reasonable mean? Is that a yes?" He pulled his coin bag out and counted out enough for the farmers, and walked back to them as the man jumps off and opened the hinge and handed him 3 jugs of milk, 2 loaves of bread. Black placed it all inside the bag that wasn't leaking with Black. He handed the woman the coin and spoke as he bows. "Thank you. Much thanks. Much." He helped me get into the back, and there was a chicken just clucking at her, and he sat down waiting for them to take off. The farmer closed the back and says in a small, worried tone, "Don't mind the chicken. We just bought him. His eggs are supposed to be bigger than the normal chicken, so be careful." The woman turned to me and spoke in a low, soft tone. "Are you a vampire?" "I'm guessing the red eyes mean you're a vampire." "Hey, if you want to eat, blood, you can take mine." Black eyed the woman as she was acting weird and already knew I hated feeding. Black readies himself to turn the chatter into something else if needed. The farmer spoke again. "I once fed a vampire, my blood, and he did me one favor. Is that how it works? Because I'm a struggling mom that could use help." Black watched my face to see if I was bothered by the woman at all. As he could tell, the man wasn't happy about the topic, as he spoke under his breath. "Not that they are all the same, but vampires where I grew up were signs of the devil, trying to make you evil." The woman next to him popped him one in his head, and he snapped with a ouch sound but didn't talk. "I'm sorry, honey. He's rude sometimes. Or he doesn't know how to respect someone's personal life." Black tilted his head as some words he picked up, and others he didn't even have a hint of what they meant. But he knew at the very least the woman didn't know she was doing the same thing as the husband in a less rude way. Feeling a bit uncomfortable about the conversation at hand, I laid down in the carriage and closed my eyes, thinking to be overtired and falling asleep as my fist balled. Still listening to them continue to talk about my kind, as if we're all the same, trying to hold back my feelings the best I could, as small streams of blood tears ran down my cheek and onto my hand. Black's temper was already getting high by the way the farmers were talking about me to me. He stood up after seeing the blood tears and grabbed hold of the man's shirt, pulling him back to face him. The horse sways back and forth as the straps were being pulled, and the horses took a sharp stop. Black's green and blue eyes reads death in raw rage, while his hands was steaming with the toxic smoke. He spoke in a low tone as he then grabbed the woman as well. "You both are disrespectful people that need to learn your place and mind your manners. You are making my person upset, and I do not like how you are talking. You smelly, ugly, dumb human beings. Get off and walk away before I hurt both of you. Now." He snapped and pushed them off the carriage. He jumped in the front and grabbed hold of the leather straps as he hit them hard on the horse's back. The farmer's wife slapped the husband and called him names. "You dumbass, you made them upset. I can't take you anywhere. Now I won't get my wish." Black narrowed his eyes as he looked down at his hands that steamed and tried to keep away from me as much as he could, while going as fast as he could. He was so mad seeing me upset he didn't understand what he was doing and why. The words he said rang throughout his head, and he kept saying, "My person, my person." What does that even mean? What was I trying to say? Why does my belly hurt? His face became flushed and red. As he was going a little too fast, the chicken and horses freaked out a bit. He tries to slow down and yells out, "Luna, are you okay?" He glanced over his shoulder a few times, with worry on his face and pulling a hand over the back to wipe the blood tears off her cheek. "I'm sorry, so much sorry," he says, trying to figure out what was going on with him and why that made him so mad. He never felt this before, and it was so new he started to think he was getting ill or needed to rest from drinking the gross candy drinks. He sighs as he slows down a great amount to only stop altogether. He turned to look down at Luna that was laying down, his head tilted as he lowers down to her to see if she was okay. He placed a hand over her cheek in a bit of an awkward way, trying to say he was there for her. "I right here. I got your back." He offers her a smile as he removes his hands from her cheek, almost acting like she was glass. He lowers his head after turning around and spoke. I need to return it, don't I?" He looked up to see how far they were from the next town and just let out a soft breath as he put a candy in his mouth and swished it around. His head now down like a little kid, he thought about what he just did and if he was in the wrong. He mumbled in a low, dragged tone, "Please, say something." "Thank you, Black," was all I said, as a few more tears fell from my cheek. Wiping my eyes, I got up and leapt out of the carriage, not saying anything else or speaking as I walked off into the next town. After a while, Black noticed that I was being quiet for a long time after saying thank you. He picked up his head and turned to look back to only see me walking to the town on foot. He stood up and jumped off the carriage and walked from heel to toe barefoot, following far behind me. He placed his hands in his baggy black pants pockets, watching me through his light blue hair, wondering the feelings he has in his gut and his heart fluttering as if he was scared of something but wasn't. He pulled the candy from his pocket and smiled in the corner of his mouth as the sweet berry taste washed away the dryness in his mouth. Once he was close to her, he started to talk as best as he could. 5 years ago, Vale saved me from an organization called Corporation Cryptic. I was Project 3173, made in the Supernatural Lab, Project Warzone. I'm made in one of the several labs that were made based on the kind of people and beasts Kazuma was studying. He just kind of showed up like stars in the night sky. He rubs the back of his neck, trying to explain. I have known that demon guy for a long time. Never thought to see him traveling with a female like you. Not like it's a bad thing, but, he's not the friendliest person in the world, for good reasons. But, I like him. He's a good bad guy. Black tilted his head to me and offers me a candy with his hand stretched out. How did you meet him, and why are you traveling with him? He spoke in a dry tone that was always dragged out, kind of lifeless. Walking through the town, my head down, not really paying attention to anything around me at the time. I didn't realize Black was close to me until he spoke up. He talked about his past and how he ran into Vale. I felt bad for the life he lived, as my heart bled out for him. I met Vale while in a kingdom my mom used to take me to in the past. I recall when he first showed up, I didn't trust him or even liked him, but he managed to get my mom's friends and all of her guards to like him. I spent most of my time on the roof till we were under attack. That day, Vale and I were the only ones fighting to protect the queen. She ended up getting hurt, and I took her away, but someone had a weapon named Bloodshed. It makes my kind crave blood. So I left her in a locked room and leapt out the window. Things died down and Vale found me sitting on the steps trying to control the hunger. I pulled up my sleeve to reveal the mark he had placed. That's how I ended up with this. He offered me a way out from my past and to see the world, and I took it. I did end up asking him why he asked me to come with him. I let out a sigh as I recalled the conversation. I was trying to free myself from battle. You fit this best. I let out a chuckle, recalling what I yelled back at him. I remember being so confused at first by the statement. Looking up from the ground and looking over to Black, I would say, "Why did you take this job? Definitely when you found me not at the spot I was supposed to be. Why didn't you just walk away?" You know, I yelled at Vale when he said he was going to send someone to get me. I told him I didn't need a babysitter. I'm glad he didn't listen, and I'm grateful he sent you. My face would show seriousness as she looked at Black. Black, I don't want to have to lean on people all the time. I want to be able to save myself. I know how to shoot an arrow, and I know my way around a dagger, but I'm not strong enough to fight and win. Can you teach me? I stopped walking, my mind made up already as I stood there waiting for his response, trying to read his reaction. Black walked with his hands in his black pants pocket. He listened to me carefully, making sure he was understanding me enough to answer. His blue and green eyes on the path before him, almost seeing the town they were stopping at. He chuckled at me, talking about Vale and showing him the seal on my arm. He looked back at me and showed his seal that was placed on his tongue. Walking alongside Black, my skin turned a slight pink for being out in the sun too long. I would giggle with Black as they talked. It was nice to have him around, and I was really enjoying having his company. Looking at his tongue, my brow would raise. How did you end up getting a seal there? Did he kiss you? He laughed even more as he goes to speak, then hears me being glad he was here, and asked why he took the job. He rubs the back of his neck and placed a candy in his mouth. Well, partly was I owe him, but I did the job more because I knew how it feels to need something or someone, or letting someone down. It all sucks. He stopped and looked at me through his blue hair for a while before speaking. When you weren't at Lockwood, I thought I failed Vale. It bothered me, but I'm glad to have found you and be doing this trip. I don't get to talk to many people. He listened to me talk about knowing how to fight with a bow and dagger. He looked out to the town and back at me. Yeah, I can teach you, but I don't know if how I fight is the best way. He started to walk again as he thinks for a while about the bow he is handcrafting for me. I love the smell of lilacs and roses. Do you? He smiles as it was random, but he then stopped at a lilac bush just to look up at it. I didn't really get how the seal worked or what they did exactly. I hope Black could answer the questions for me. Oh, wait. You said you will teach me? My face lit up as I took hold of Black, giving him a hug. Oh, thank you, Black. That means a lot to me. I chuckled, pushing him lightly when he made the comment about needing to learn how to dye my own clothes, first chuckling when he randomly spoke about the flowers. Huh? Oh. My face would turn a bright pink as I seemed to get a bit shy, my voice a bit soft-spoke. Actually, lilacs and red roses are my favorite flowers. I got a bit of a soft spot for them. Black looked over at me as he said, Once we get to the town and gather our needed stuff, I will teach you a few things, but first, you need to learn how to dye your clothes. He laughed a bit as the comment and dropped the black dripping bag at my feet. While holding the other bag, He turned and walked back to the path and says in a low voice, "There are a lot of wild lilac bushes here." He just kept walking until he was at the bridge. He pulled some coins out and handed it to the posted guards to enter the town. He walked around to see the small shops, taking note which shops he needed to stop at. He stood in the middle of the town looking for the inn with Luna. He glanced at me for a moment as he spoke. Come with me, we are going to fix her clothing, then find an inn to rest up for a long trip." He stumbles over to a large bucket with a cooling rack, and he put his hand out to the bag he gave to me by the bush, and pulled out all the clothes in each bag and put it in the bucket and added mixed black herbs and nuts. He turns it with a baker's wand for bread. The woman there smiles and spoke in rushed tones. "I will have these dyed by middle sun. Go shop around and they will be done." She pulled the wand from his hand and he just rubbed his neck and nods. He turned away and started to look for a weapon, for a smithing shop, for wood, for the bow he was secretly making. His blue and green eyes spotted a store and walked inside as he talked to the male about supplies for crafting, and he was pointed to the small smith shop in the back of a person's house, and walked there. Upon shopping, he talked with the man for a while and got what he was asking for and pays full then some. He started to carve and shape the wood for a while, knowing he left me to wander around, hoping I would find an inn or at least enjoy the town long enough for him to finish the bow, knowing this would take a long time. He paid the man to finish up what he was doing to go seek out me. I walked through the town, checking out the shops, making my way to a shop that sold sweets. I bought some pastries. I'll take 2 honeycombs, 2 strawberry tarts, and 2 apple fritters. The sweet young lady would place the treats into a box, handing it over to me. "Thank you." I placed some silver coins onto the counter and walked off, heading towards the shop that caught my eye earlier. Black would spot me in a different shop that seemed to have just about everything. It was a mess in his eyes. He walked around to see what I was shopping for. He glanced down to see a feather and picked it up. He walked to the checkout and asked to buy it, as the person scoffed and laughed, saying it was a girl's clip-in feather. He shrugged and slammed down the coin and clipped it into his hair, to only walk back to me, placing a hand on my shoulder. He pulled the feather over his shoulder and smirks as he spoke. "This is to remember everything we have been through." "I like it. It fits you perfectly." I picked up some pastries, holding them out to him. Black's smile grows as she shows him the sweets. "Oh, well, that's going to be really good." His coin bag off his belt and sighs as he spoke low. "We need to be a little more sparing with our money. From here on out, at least pick up fast jobs or sell more of your old stuff if you have any left. I still have some royal belongings that we can trade off. I thought about the rings and earrings. I'm sure it'll hold us for a bit." He looked around a bit longer as he says to the seller, "Where's the inn in this town?" The person spoke. "It's a small town. I'm sure you can find it. This town has signs for a reason." Black's eyes narrowed from how rude the seller was being, or in the fact everyone he has talked to. Looking around the shop, I picked up some vials in a pot. Paying for them, I asked the man, "Do you know where the inn is?" The man would just scoff at me. "Yeah, I do. Not like I'm gonna tell you." Think I don't know what you are? Go on, be gone with you." My eyes would widen for a sec, for I had never been treated so rudely before. "Oh, Alright, I'm sorry to have wasted your time. He watched me ask the same seller be rude to me as well. His eyes narrowed as he yelled at the seller, "Don't you dare talk to her like that." He was now being pulled by me. "Let's go. I think I seen a sign 2 blocks over. Besides, our clothes must be done by now." Walking out of the shop, I headed back the way we came, and his heart started to beat fast, and he looked over at me with a little bit shocked, then nods at me. "Alright, let's get your clothes." He picked up his feet and ran alongside me, then slows down and walked with me for a while until we made it to the dyeing and drying clothes. The lady folded her arms and raised her brow. "Took you guys long enough." She pulled the clothes off the rack, handing them to Black, as she says in a low voice, "If I was you guys, I'd hide your hair and eyes, if you don't want to be kicked out." She flashed a double fang in her mouth as she went back to work. Black bagged the clothes and gave the person the coins as he glanced up and over to me and nods. We walked for a while until the inn, and he starts to talk about the seal. So Vale didn't kiss me, but it burned so bad when he placed it. It's like he is offering help in a lot of different ways. I think each one does something different for all the same. I'm really not that sure, but I do know if I need him, he comes, and if my hunger is too much, he takes it. He kind of laughs while rubbing the back of his neck and plays with the feather when his blue and green eyes see the sign for the inn. He pulled me to the right and finished up the coins by paying for the inn for one night. The owner spoke in a low voice as she says, "Enjoy your stay," and hands them a key with the number 14. He pulled the bags over his shoulder and went to the door and turns the key slowly as he tries to get a feel for the place. Upon opening the room, it was the nicest room they had been in for a while. He smiles as he dropped the bags to the floor near the bed and says in a low, dragged voice, "Wow, it's so clean." He walked into the kitchen and saw a shower and a bath and just smiles. "Hey, I hope you don't mind, but I'm going to clean up. Feel free to grab your black clothes." While talking to me, he took his top off and ran his hand over the scars and number over his arms. He pulled his hair from his face and unclipped the feather. He placed it on the table. He walked back to the bathroom with the door half open to hear me and went into the shower. The warm water fell over his body and it felt relaxing to loosen up a little. He closed his eyes and for a moment he could see through Vale's eyes. It looked like he was on his way back from a job and making sure a purple-haired girl got to a safe place. Black felt a little weak and only guessed it was Vale recovering from fighting. Once he was done cleaning up, he got out and put on the same clothes. He didn't buy clothes for himself, so he wears the same thing until they got coins spare. Once he got out of the bathroom, he looked around to see what I was doing, and he walked over to one of the beds and sat down. His wet hair pulled back, showing his two-tone eyes and his full expression. He lays back for a little bit as he spoke. "We should get to Blackmont in a few days, but you, can't wait to see Vale?" He chuckled as he was enjoying the downtime. Getting up, I walked to the table to get my clothes. When Black spoke up, his eyes opened once more. "It would be nice to see Vale again, but I would have to say I am a bit sad that our journey is about to come towards an end. Unless you plan on joining us on whatever we are doing exactly." Hearing me talk about it being nice to see Vale again, would change his expression to closing his eyes and pulling an arm over his face while resting on the bed on his back. Vale's plans are to build a place for people like him or me. I won't be joining you guys once I get you to Blackmont. I have freedom, and I plan to see everything in the world first. He pulled his hand up and smirks a little. Hand. I let out a chuckle as I walked towards the bathroom door. Black, I noticed that when we go shopping, we always buy me clothes. You should get some yourself next time. I would smile at him lightly before walking inside and turning on the water, slipping into a warm bath. I finally could feel how my body felt. It was tired and aching all over, as the mark on my arm was burning. I looked down at it, wondering what mine and how did it work. Washing myself up, not wanting to take too long, I quickly got out and dressed myself. Walking back into our room, I took a seat on the bed and just looked at Black for a second. Looking at his two colored eyes and his blue hair, he really was lovely. So Black, once we get to Blackmont, what do you plan on doing then? He listens to her move around the room and bathroom and speak again once she finished cleaning up. With the way our money is going, we won't be able to buy much more. That and I am used to only having one set of clothing. He says after I got out of the bathroom and dressed myself. He felt me sit on the bed beside him, and he looked over at me with his blue and green eyes, and his hair pulled back wet from his shower. His dragged voice whispers for a moment. You're, looking at me for a long time. You're making my heart beat fast. A few of the candles burned out from being lit for so long, and the wax dripped and pooled to the point of smothering the flame. He watched me for a while until I spoke again. Oh, well, I plan to part way and seek out people like me to help them out. I really want to see the world and learn more about it. Maybe be forgiven for my sins and why I was punished for so long in the labs. He leans his upper half up now, leaning on his elbows. He gets close to my face as he lightly brushed it with. My heart raced as he got closer to my face, his lips grazing my skin, making it tingle where it touched. As I held my breath, his lips as he says in a dragged tone, I will come back to see you, little vampire. After all, you have a face I'll never forget. He placed a light peck on my cheek. I would blush a slight pink to only follow that action with sitting up and lightly pulling me into his arms and onto his chest. He looked past me at the remaining of candles flickering in the room. I would find myself wrapped in his arms, swept up in the moment, as I laid my head upon his chest, just listening to him speak. I feel weird around you, Lunara. My heart tells me I am running while it beats fast, but I am still. My words come out a mess, even for my own speech, and I can't bear the thought of you in pain, or someone hurting you. His lips curls into a half smile as he lets her go and looks down at her for a moment. Your eyes have a fire in them that holds so much, passion. He cups her cheek, and with one hand he was bold with his actions and words, like space and respect was unknown to him. I am sorry if I make you feel, Black, I know how you feel. My heart skips a beat when you hold my hand or tell people I'm yours. The more we've gotten to know each other, the better I'm getting to understand you, and the more I think I'm starting to have feelings for. She would feel him pull away as she looked away from him, letting her hair fall upon her face to hide her emotion behind a black curtain of wavy long hair. He soon lays back down as tucked his arms behind his head as he pats the bed beside him. Just lay with me for a while. I won't try to do anything. I'm not that kind of person. His eyes fell closed and his breathing light, as he was more than just tired. The lighting was so dim his eyes just fell heavy to the trickery of the mood and unsure what to do, but they both needed rest after the long day. As I looked over Black, I would see his eyes close as he spoke about me just lying beside him. Nothing more, nothing less. Just some peaceful sleep. Without a word, too shy to speak up again, I moved to lay next to him, my head resting on the pillow as my eyes started feeling heavy itself for the day they had. I didn't know what was to happen tomorrow and was a bit saddened our time was coming up short, but I didn't let the moment ruin my night as I drifted off to sleep. The night became day while the two of them lay there in one bed. Black remained on his back, sleeping, while Luna was now curled up with her back to him. He closes his eyes tightly to only open them and look around the room for a while. Seeing the sun's rays on the bed, he understood why she was curled up now. He pulled his heavy body up and swings his legs over the bed and stood up. He walked to the window and looked out it for a while, seeing the townspeople doing their work and getting along with each other. It seemed like it was a real good morning. He pulled at the fabric hanging from the window to make it darker in the room. He pulled his right hand up and ruffled his hair into his face. Walking to their bags, he pulled out her cloak and a change of clothes for her, then packed the rest of the stuff up and swung it over his shoulder. He closed the door quietly, then ran out the door to the smith's shop. He waved and greeted each person he saw as he felt good and well rested. Once he made it to the smith's shop, he walked in and greeted the tall guy. "Hello, is it ready for the taking?" He nods as he pulled the smoke from his mouth and spoke. "Yeah, it's ready, boy. Why is your hair blue?" Black ruffled his hair with his free hand and laughed. "Never dye your clothes, on something high?" The smith shook his head and laughed. "I'm guessing you're blonde. Here you go, just got done shining it." Black took the bow and walked in the back and sat down next to the forge and carved a rose on it slowly. He hummed slightly while the smith watched him in the window, and another person came in and spoke. "He seems in love, does he not?" The smith nods as he pulled a weapon off the wall to hand it to the person that just walked in. He does. What I do to be young again." The person replies, "I hear ya." As I woke, I lightly rolled over, rubbing my eyes, moving my hand away from my face. My eyes would flutter open to find the bed empty. Sitting up, I looked around the room, but Black was nowhere in sight. I would notice my clothing set up as I swiftly got dressed, running out the room and down the steps, looking around the lobby. My heart sinks a bit, for he wasn't there either. He left early this morning with a skip in his step. He looked like he was in a chipper mood. The front desk lady called out to me, giving her a slight smile. "Thank you," was all that I responded as I walked out of the inn. Unsure where Black would go, I headed into town just to get a good look around before we took off again, stopping into shops here and there, just picking up supplies that I thought we might need on our journey, starting with some food. Taking a turn down one of the streets, I would see a body just laying on the road as I ran towards it. "Oh my God, are you all right?" I walked over, checking his neck for a pulse, leaning my face close to him so I could listen to his slight breathing. "All right, so you still alive. I wonder what happened to him." As I was still close to his face and neck, a child came out of his home and spotted me. My bright red eyes feared the child as he called out, "Monster! There's a monster in the streets!" "She killed a man." People were now running out of their houses as I called out to him, "No, this is all just a misunderstanding. I found him like this. I was just checking if he was alive." The words done nothing as they got closer to me, screaming shit like, "Filthy bloodsucker," and "Why don't you take your cloak and go back from where you came from?" Getting to my feet, I took off running away from the crowd as they chased me down the streets, still spatting their hatred towards me. Black rushed around the blacksmith's shop along with the people in the shop to see what was going on, and the smith mutters, "Filthy bloodsucker," while waving his hand in the crowd's direction before walking away. Black's blue and green eyes pupil gets small as he glares at the group of people with anger, and he turns his head to the smith and ripped him back from walking away and pushed him to the ground and summoned a spear from nothing but blue and green smoke and aims it at his neck. "What did you say?" The smith yelled out in fear, "Demon! Sorcery! Black magic! Help!" Black impaled his neck and watched his head roll off his neck into the doorway of his own shop, while the group stopped, running after Luna into Black now. He pulled his body up with the spear in his hand and the illness rolling off of him, his eyes fixed on everyone, swinging his spear, cutting down any person that dared try to take a step closer to him. Once he stood there with a bend at his knees and dragged-out voice that was a little deep. "How dare all of you attack a person for what they are? You should be ashamed of yourselves." Black picked up one of his shoeless feet over in the spilled blood and walked down the road away from the few bodies that now lay dead in Luna's name, for Black couldn't help himself to kill, as that is what he was made for. With the spear resting on his shoulder, he walked out of town with his bags until he saw Luna sitting alone under a tree. He sighs as the spear returns to its home, trying to rub the blood off of his hands and face before walking up to her. Sitting under the tree, I closed my eyes, breathing lightly as I tried to calm myself down. "This is why we kill the filthy scum, Lunara. Humans are nothing more than food, playthings." Morgan's voice echoed in my head as I recalled my childhood. My body shook from head to toe as I felt scared and upset. My fingers would wrap around the bow on my back as my eyes were wide open. They were black and soulless as I got to my feet, pulling an arrow out and placing it into the center of the bow. "You are a vampire, and a pure blood, one that means our kind looks up to you. Do you want them to see you as weak, letting a few humans, wolves, or demons overpower you?" His voice was like poison as it spoke to me. Pulling back the arrow, to anyone watching, it would look like I was shooting at nothing, but to me, I could see my dad standing in front of me. "No, I'm not you. I don't kill for no reason." Then to set my authority. "We are no better than anyone or thing else. I don't want to kill you, your family, but I can't let you hurt people. I will get stronger, and when I do, you won't be able to control me anymore." Releasing the arrow, it would go flying through the air, piercing through the illusion as it goes deep into a tree. Falling back, I would sit back under the tree as red streams came from my eyes, staining my skin. He saw one of the many lilac bushes and pulled a small bundle of the bush and walked over to her and sits next to her as he placed it on her lap. "I'm sorry people are cruel to you." He tilted his head down, now mad at himself, not sure of the water coming from his eyes but didn't ask. "I should have not left you alone. Please forgive me. I wanted to make you something nice." He pulled one of the bags open and pulled out a black bow with a hand-carved rose on the side, and a handmade bag filled with black arrows with crow feathers on the other end. He lays them across her lap with the flowers. "I hope you like them." he says as he looked at her through his blue hair, looking at her for a little too long, his lips moved without him realizing it. Can I kiss your cheek? His eyes widen as he pulled his body back a little and speaks fast. I'm sorry. I just wanted to cheer you up. Sometimes I say the wrong thing. I'm so very sorry, Luna. The sweet scent of blood filled the air as I turned my head to face Black, unsure how long he was there and how much he had seen. More important, why did he smell like blood? Was he hurt? My dark black eyes scanned him up and down, looking for any signs of a wound. Not seeing anything, I just watched him as he sat down next to me, talking about how he felt sorry for something that wasn't his fault. It's hard for people to change their ways when they grow up learning one thing. Taking the flowers in my hand, I would take in their lovely scent while speaking in a shaky voice, watching him pull the most beautiful bow I've ever seen out, along with arrows to match. You made that? It's lovely, Black. Thank you. Leaning forward, I lightly gave him a hug as he spoke about kissing my cheek. Blushing, unable to speak now, I would just nod to him as I watched him ramble. It's all right, you can. My voice was no louder than a whisper as I looked away, a bit shy now. Black stops mumbling and tripping on his words when I say it's okay. He took in a light breath and moves closer to me and tilted his head to the side as he pulls one of his hands up to my hair, moving it behind my ear and lightly gliding his fingers on my jawline, and leans in and placed a gentle kiss on my cheek in the corner of my lips. He leans his forehead on mine, with his thumb running back and forth on my cheekish jawline as he looks down at me through his hair as he lifts the words into a whisper. This will always belong to you. He pulled one of my hands and placed it over his chest. It was like his body and words took over him, and he lost himself in the moment. He didn't move while he says in a low tone, You are perfect in my eyes. He pulled his hand down and pulls back as he stands up, and he looked away at the sky as he became flushed and grew with a light hunger. In a random act, he pulled his arms out and pulled his body up on a branch, and repeats a few times, working out the hunger. As he refused to think of her as food of any kind, he pulled his body up and down 30 times. He drops down and sat down, wiping the light sweat from his forehead and pulling his arm to rest on his knee, looking at the mark 3173, watching the blue-green veins fade back into or behind the number, revealing the hunger he was feeling. He popped a candy from his pocket into his mouth and tries not to act unnormal. So he explains himself. If I don't want to feed, working out helps. Is that weird? That's not weird. I would smile lightly to him, as speaking in a soft tone that sounded like small wind chimes blowing in a summer breeze. Black just smiles at me until he could hear Vale's voice clear as day and his head through the seal on him. He lowers his head as he listens to him, careful, making sure he wasn't in harm's way. Black, those are not your feelings you are feeling, he replies in his head to him. I don't understand. He glanced at Luna for a moment while Vale explains how he felt for her, and Black nods in understanding. He must be right, as he is new to things like so, and didn't want to give her the wrong impression. He struggled for a moment to figure out what he should do about it. Hearing Vale once more speak, I am close. I am on my way to go to Blackmont with her. Black was swept up with different types of feelings. Most of them were very new to him. He turned to Luna, knowing what he was doing, and pulled his arms out to her and pulled one of the black arrows up to his arm, cutting down it to his inner elbow, to his wrist. You should feed. It's almost, dark. And you need to be in your best. Knowing she would refuse his blood, based off how she is with feeding at all, he narrowed his eyes and stood up. You're such a brat sometimes. Why can't you just stop acting like a pampered princess? He snapped, giving the best of his acting. Grab your stuff. I don't want to keep Vale waiting. You have been making this trip longer than what it needs to be. He lowers his head for just a moment, feeling bad for his words until he picked his head up and swallows hard before the last words. You may not be a filthy bloodsucker, but all you do is drain the energy out of people. All I want you to do is to feed, but you can't even be a vampire the right way. He turns away from her in deep sorrow, watching the sun go behind the clouds, and he seemed to lose track of time, as the day was almost over. He started to walk away from Luna as he forced a scuff and whispers, I can't believe I thought I could even be with you. Those words was the end of his act, and he ran off with tears and yelling in his head, Why does it hurt so bad? Vale responds in a firm voice, Because she was nothing but kind to you, and she doesn't understand the seal like you do. Sorry, Black. I really don't wish you pain, but I will explain everything once I make it there. Please don't be reckless. Black's body on his arm breaks down into blue and green smoke that was a toxic unknown illness. Black left to go back to the forest alone, not wanting to be around another soul. I would look back in surprise, my mouth hung open as confusion took over. Black, what are you talking about? Getting to my feet as he continued to say one hurtful thing after another. Where's this all coming from? I would watch as he starts to walk away from me. Black! I called out to him, but he was already out of earshot. My chest hurt as I screamed out in pain. Fine, leave me. I don't even want you to help me in the first place. Tears fell from my eyes as I took off in the opposite direction, running to the nearest town from the one we were at. In the distance, I could hear the sound of a carriage going down the rocky dirt path. Standing in its way, I watched as the horse came to a stop and an elderly man jumped from the driver's seat and walked over to me. Are you all right? You shouldn't be in the middle of the road like that. You could have gotten hurt. I was still weak, walking up to him and sank my teeth into his neck, only taking enough blood to keep me moving. The man, clearly in fear, would just look at me in shock as my eyes glowed a bright red. His eyes would glaze over as I spoke. Henry, don't you recall? I'm your daughter. We were heading on a road trip to the next town over. The old man's eyes went back to normal as he let out a chuckle. Well, dear, the horse seems well rested now. Why don't we get back on the road? I want to get into town before night falls. He would chuckle, climbing back into the carriage, taking hold of the reins. Well, come on, you don't want to keep Mother waiting. Walking to the back of the cart, I hopped in. All right, let's go. My voice wasn't happy or sad. It just sounded tired, confused, and hurt. As they took off, while the carriage was riding down the path, the sun was setting, and the stars were out dancing around the half moon. Vale turned to Rayra and looked at her for a moment as he spoke to her. I will one day call upon you when I settle my home and build the best guild I can muster up. When that time comes, and only when that time comes, I will summon you, and you will come and enjoy life to the fullest. I will show you the world and what it has to offer, also bring you a family to care for, and meanwhile, here is some coin, and please try to make it to a nice inn and rest. Think about joining me later. His blue eyes softened at her young-looking face and thought about marking her as well, just to keep an eye on her. I will place a mark on your cheek. We will be able to talk within our minds. When you travel, please, Rayra, no more tears. You are safe now. I won't let anyone hurt you or Rin. You'll have a home soon, and I will help you figure out your gift and how to deal with Rin. I promise you." He placed his thumb over her cheek and half grins at her, leaving behind a seal on her cheek that matched her hair. Rayra nods as she sobs, not sure what she should do or where to go. Thank you, Vale. You are too kind. But, where do I go?" He took a deep breath and talked with an old friend of his from Lockwood, and smiles just enough to show her she was all right. "His name is Rax. He will meet you in your dreams and tell you how to get to him. For now, find an inn, and Rax will come get you." Vale's body started to break down in darkness, while Rayra tried to keep him a while longer, but he left and regathered his body next to Luna and spoke in a low voice as he glanced down at her with a cold look. "You'll feed on a random guy, but I have to force you?" He kind of chuckled until he saw her expression. What happened? This is the end of chapter 3. Thank you for listening.